Okay, so here's the setup that I used on the Puppet drum pad dance video. So here's the puppet here. Underneath I have two Nord Drum 3Ps. These are actually, I'm fairly certain, the best drums for this, the best drum pads for these. I ordered about 7 different types of drum pad just to see which ones could potentially work, and none of them worked anywhere near as good as this one in terms of the sensitivity and playability of them. And of course I ordered 2 so that I could make it kind of like a stage like this. Having 2 was somewhat difficult because all the settings are on either side, so you can sometimes see in the video the puppet flutter to one side and play with the dial or press some of these buttons, and it has to do it on both because they're not synced, you know. So that made it somewhat difficult, but it was all right. It was fairly manageable, and I don't think it's too noticeable in the video. And if it is noticeable, it's just kind of like a behind the scenes thing within the scenes, which I quite like. 2 of these UV lights here. Shot everything on a GoPro camera with a +1 macro filter. Below there's a little convex mirror that people have on their windshields, not windshields, side mirrors. And that's quite nice because the screen on the GoPro that I adapted to face the other way actually shows what the video shows what you're shooting, but it doesn't flip the image, so it's quite counterintuitive to use, funnily enough. So the mirror, because that's a mirrored image, it's a lot more intuitive in terms of knowing what direction the puppet might be leaning and correcting. So that's quite useful. I have a magic arm attaching it to this mic stand. I have a microphone on the mic stand too. This is just for the intro. This lamp was also just for the intro. But these 2 lights here kind of make it sort of if I turn one on, you get kind of a spotlight on the drum pad, so that everything else can remain somewhat in the shadows if that and these are the only lights on. So yeah, that's very useful. I have a foil around here so that I can adjust the aperture a little bit as well, and another light there with some tape around just to do the same thing. I have, oh yeah, here's the gloves. The gloves weren't actually long enough, so I had to buy some gloves that wouldn't fit and cut the sleeves off. I couldn't simply use these gloves because they were too small, but the sleeves would fit, because sometimes my wrist would start showing and it was unacceptable. Here's the loop pedal. It's a Boomerang 3-phase sampler. This is a pretty good one as well, and I think a lot of guitarists use things like this because it's kind of pedal based, meaning that you can operate it with your foot, which is very useful because obviously my hands are occupied. I have, what else? Oh yeah, this might be kind of interesting. I thought this might be more useful than it was, and it was just to write down where I'd stored the samples for each of the drum kit, the left one and the right drum pad, and what order I would loop things and that kind of thing. In the end, it just became muscle memory, and I didn't actually use this, but it was quite useful to write it down in order to kind of solidify it in my mind. So we have these cables here. So coming out of the drum pad, we have a couple of jacks that go into the loop pedal and some that go directly into the dictaphone. The dictaphone, I was able to see and monitor the levels and make sure nothing was peaking, and record directly from the drum pad and directly from the Boomerang. That way I have I don't really have multiple channels, but I can isolate the thing that the puppet was doing at the present rather than having all of the loops over it, which means I might be able to tweak the volumes a little bit in terms of kind of being able to master it nicely. I mean, I don't want to do many tweaks because the whole thing was live and that's the appeal of it, and I wouldn't want to do any kind of, shifts in timing to correct certain things. I think it's much better to have it raw and believable because that's how it was. Yeah, I have a little amp there just to boost the volume coming through the dictaphone so that I could monitor it with these headphones, and that's my setup.